What if I told you that the very first vampire did not come from darkness? Instead, he was born from forbidden love and condemned by heaven itself, doomed to eternal hunger. His name was wiped from memory, buried deep beneath shadow, yet his blood still cries out. This is the tale of Seraphil, the child of a fallen angel. Welcome to our channel, Tales of Forbidden Scrolls, where myths and legends awaken. Before the concept of vampires ever existed, there was a being born not from darkness but from profound sorrow. This entity was forged from the grief of a fallen angel named Azel, a watcher cursed by love and broken by divine law. This was not a creature turned by a bite, nor chosen by shadow, but a soul born amid celestial tragedy. This sorrowful genesis marked the dawn of the Crimson lineage, the very first child to taste blood, not out of hunger, but out of mourning. This is the story of Azel and Seraphil, the fallen watcher and the son destined to become the first vampire. Long before the flood, well before the rise of temples or the invention of sin, there existed the Grigori, the Watchers. These angels were appointed not to intervene, but simply to observe humanity from the veil that separates worlds. They stood like silent sentinels at the edges of the mortal realm, detached and impartial. Among them was Azel. Once he stood in the exalted halls of heaven, his wings gleaming with divine fire, his gaze fixed on earth alongside his brethren. Yet, slowly, an unseen weight began to crack the stone of his resolve. Azel was different. Unlike the other watchers who reported human affairs with cold indifference, he lingered. He witnessed human hardship, men bleeding for crops, women burying children to the frozen earth, and he listened to prayers whispered into an indifferent wind, prayers left unanswered. Most painfully, Azel felt it, the ache, the beauty, the terrible nobility of mortal suffering. Quietly at first, then more sternly, the watchers warned him, detach, observe, but do not feel. You're not one of them. But it was too late. Azel began descending closer to earth than the laws permitted. Cloaked in veils, he sat beside weeping widows and stood beneath trees while dying men cried out to the stars. He never spoke, never touched. Yet this closeness brought pain he could scarcely comprehend. Still, he returned again and again. Then, one harsh winter, he found her. A mortal woman, no queen or prophetess, just a young girl wandering a snow-swallowed forest. Fever had taken her. Pale and sweating, she collapsed beneath an ancient cedar, clutching her chest as her breath faded. Azel stood above her, invisible and eternal, trembling. She prayed, not with words, but through the desperate curl of her fingers toward the sky and the silent flutter of her lips. It was a plea no angel was allowed to answer, but Azel did. He broke a law inscribed before time began. He knelt beside her, touching her brow with trembling hands, whispering a hymn forbidden to mortal ears, the song of restoration, sung once before creation's dawn. Light surged in her veins like golden fire. Her breath returned, her eyes opened, and with that, Azel fell, not by sword or battle, but by choice. The heavens severed him instantly. Stars dimmed, winds stilled, thrones averted their gaze. No pronouncement was needed. Azel's wings ignited in white flame. His halo shattered. His name was burned from the divine scrolls. He became a shadow, not cast to hell, but sentenced to silence. A wanderer, exiled and forgotten. Yet the woman lived, unaware of the celestial law broken, unaware of the eternal sentence cast upon her savior. Days later, she returned to her village, weak but alive. She spoke only of a dream, light, warmth, and a man made of stars kneeling beside her in the snow. None believed her. Azel watched from the edge of the trees, unseen, never revealing himself again, knowing his presence would only burden her. But he could not leave. She was his last tether to heaven, and the reason he chose exile. Weeks passed, Then months and one night, beneath a blanket of straw and silence, her hands cradled her stomach. She gasped. She was with child. The heavens shuddered at the disturbance. It echoed through creation not like thunder, but a chilling shiver. A soul had been conceived that was neither human nor angel, but something in between. A legacy born not of rebellion or lust, but of a compassion so pure it shattered eternity's law. Within that child's blood stirred something ancient and eternal, not of light nor darkness, but of a hunger the world had never before known. Chapter 2. The Forbidden Child. The child was born beneath a winter sky, when a wind whispered in fractured tones and the moon hid its face. No stars bore witness that night. Even the earth seemed to pause, holding its breath as something new came into being. Elia, his mother, delivered him in silence, without midwives, without neighbors. Seraphil entered the world not with a cry, but with a long, slow exhale, as if he had waited centuries for his very first breath. He had no father by mortal reckoning, yet Azel watched unseen from the tree-line, his form wrapped in shadows. He did not approach nor claim the child, but silently lingered in the periphery of the world for countless years. The boy's name was Seraphil, a name said to have visited Elia in a dream, the same vision where a man of blazing light had touched her brow and restored her to life. From his earliest days, Seraphil was different, calm where other children were restless, his eyes a strange pale silver. Quietly observing everything around him, animals showed no fear. Wolves accepted him as one of their own, and birds alighted upon his shoulder without hesitation. He never cried, never grew sick, though he smiled. An unsettling stillness lurked behind those pale eyes, a quiet that unnerved neighbors and set tongues whispering. Rumors spread through the village like wildfire. Some claimed Seraphil was cursed, soulless, born from a dark pact or tainted lineage. Others saw him as a gift from forgotten gods. Yet none dared voice such suspicions while Elia was near. Her love for her son was fierce and silent, and those who lingered too long found themselves without words. Still, unease took root. By the time Seraphil was 12, a profound change began. His appetite for food vanished. Bread and broth left him hollow. His body weakened despite never succumbing to illness. Extended slumbers came in waves, followed by waking drenched in sweat, whispering in a tongue no one could understand. Then came a night of the tempest. Lightning tore through the forest. Winds howled like restless spirits, and Seraphil collapsed near the hearth, his skin cold, lips turning blue. His mother held him tightly, weeping as though cradling a child of 3 years, begging God, stars, any power that had granted him life, to spare him from this fate. And in the deepest hour of that night, Seraphil stirred, but he was no longer the boy he had been. His breath steady, eyes burning with unnatural light, he rose and embraced his mother with tenderness. Then, silently and without resistance, he bit in her neck, not with violence, but with the fulfillment of a hunger that had awaited its moment all his life. Elia's body fell limp in his arms. Her blood stained his lips. When he gazed into the firelight, his reflection was gone. For the first time, Seraphil wept. Outside, Azel stood cloaked in rain, sensing the awakening of the curse. His son had crossed the forbidden threshold that heaven had feared since conception. No longer merely a child of mercy and defiance, Seraphil had become something wholly new, an immortal bound by sorrow and thirst, a soul sustained by the life stolen from others, the genesis of a bloodline doomed never to rest. Turning away from the cottage, Azel vanished into the storm, burdened by the knowledge that the divine order had been broken. The line born of compassion had become a curse, and the world would soon feel its dark reckoning. The night following Elia's death was eerily silent. No insects chirped, no wolves howled. The surrounding forests seemed to grieve in solemn hush, as if the very land held its breath to witness a new existence. Seraphil stood amid the small cabin, the scent of blood and ash heavy in the air. His mother's lifeless body lay untouched on the wooden floor. The fire had long since died out, yet a faint glow radiated, not from flame but from him. His skin no longer reflected light. Instead, it absorbed it. His once silvery, youthful eyes now glimmered with a faint red hue, as though an ancient fire burned within. More than anything, his entire presence felt transformed. At dawn, Seraphil left the cabin barefoot, the dry remnants of blood still staining his lips. He moved through the trees like a specter. His senses had expanded beyond mortal limits. He could hear roots fracturing beneath the soil, smell the sorrow embedded in the morning dew, and most terrifyingly, feel life stirring within every living creature. The sensation was agonizing. The hunger within him had finally awakened. Not merely a craving, but a primal need so overwhelming it overwhelmed his mind. It was more than thirst. It was the ache of an existence no longer bound by human laws. Food was ash, water dust. He required something ancient and sacred, blood. Yet despite this deep urge, he resisted. Seraphil wandered forests and hills, deliberately avoiding villages, striving to suppress the storm swelling inside his chest. He recalled his mother's lullabies, faint comforts that stemmed the tide, if only temporarily. After 7 days without sustenance, Seraphil collapsed near the ruins of a forgotten stone temple. His skin had dulled to gray, his heartbeat slowed almost to stillness, and his hands trembled. Then 2 ragged bandits, reeking of alcohol, discovered him. They mistook him for a dying noble boy, ripe for robbery. Laughing, they approached, knife drawn. What happened next would echo through generations. As one bandit reached out, Seraphil's eyes snapped open. With fluid, uncanny speed, he rose, his vacant expression neither angry nor afraid but hollow. The first man barely screamed before Seraphil struck his throat, lifting him effortlessly as if he weighed nothing. The second tried to flee, but Seraphil's whisper arrested him. "You're alive. I feel in your veins. I'm sorry." Then he fed. Unlike the sorrowful gentleness with which he had claimed his mother's life, this feeding was instinctual, animalistic. Blood splattered the temple floor. The bandits fell pale and drained, their eyes wide with terror, even in death. When it was over, Seraphil knelt amid the blood and wept, his hands shaking. He was no murderer by desire. He had never wished for this. Yet the curse had spoken, and silence would no longer conceal it. In the days following, Seraphil continued wandering, not searching for himself, but striving to understand what he had become. He ceased aging, ceased sleeping and dreaming. Birds avoided him, dogs growled, children wept in his presence, unable to comprehend why. Death clung to him, not for malice, but because his existence demanded it. He was the first of his kind, a creature born of love, mercy, and rebellion, now transformed into something the world had never known. A vampire. From afar, the heavens watched. The thrones awoke and debated in silence. Seraphil was neither servant nor insurgent, but an anomaly. Yet the greater terror was not this solitary being himself, but what might follow after him. Seraphil was not the end, but the beginning. Centuries passed, carrying with them the fading memory of Seraphil's mother, the crumbling remains of a temple, and the last traces of the boy he once was. Time slipped by like smoke, elusive and unmarked by his presence. Seraphil remained unchanged, untouched by age. He wandered through the rise and fall of empires, across cities carved from sandstone and marble, forests echoing with the laments of dying gods, and oceans whispering names long buried beneath their waves. The world no longer held a place for him, Wherever Seraphil walked, silence followed closely behind. The earth beneath his feet rejected life. Fires dimmed as he passed. Priests paled and faltered in his presence. Dogs barked without warning, and infants cried out without cause. He did not seek to harm, yet nature itself recoiled, not in hatred, but because he was an aberration, stitched together by mercy and condemnation. As the centuries wore on, Seraphil's curse evolved, becoming more complex. He sensed the flow of blood before it spilled, felt the rhythm of life coursing through all living things like distant music echoing in his bones. To stave off the insatiable thirst, he starved himself for weeks, retreating to caves or wandering deserts. But inevitably the yearning returned, relentless and ferocious. When it came, Seraphil fed quietly, cleanly, without cruelty or apology. No graves marked his passage. Only vague memories lingered among those left behind. Memories unexplainable, haunting. Across the ages, he was known by many names. The Pale One, the Morning Star, the Sleepless Saint, the Angel who hungers. Some worshipped him, others hunted him fiercely. He observed kings who proclaimed themselves gods and temples built to deities far weaker than himself. Amid prophets who spoke of angels, none recognized that one walked unseen among them, lost, thirsty, and eternal. Yet, Seraphil's solitude was not by choice, but by curse. Every soul he drew close to, he would inevitably lose. But loneliness weighed only part of his burden. By the 5th century of his exile, he began to sense a presence, faint at first, but steadily growing. A silent watchfulness pressing upon the edges of his existence. He had been found, one night, deep within the ruins of a mountain monastery. Seraphil awoke to a figure standing at the foot of his resting place. Neither mortal nor beast. This being was an angel unlike any watcher before. Pure fire, 6 wings folded tightly against robes woven of light and shadow, eyes veiled behind a halo of burning flame. The angel spoke no name, raised no weapon. It simply watched. Seraphil remained still, unafraid, having awaited this moment for centuries. The angel stepped closer, examined him carefully, then silently turned and vanished. This visitation repeated across decades and centuries. Different angels, same quiet observation. They neither attacked nor spoke. They waited, as if Seraphil was not a threat but a prophecy unfolding. This realization filled Seraphil with more dread than death itself. Determined to find answers, he searched for Azel, his father. He journeyed to forsaken ruins where the Watchers once gathered, whispered forbidden names, and called into the void. Yet Azel remained silent. Gradually a bitter truth settled in Seraphil's heart. He had been created and abandoned, not by heaven or hell, but by the only soul who had ever shared his blood. As the centuries advanced and the world transformed beyond recognition, Seraphil faded into legend, an ephemeral shadow in ancient texts, a name whispered only in secret cults. But the enduring theme lingered, a being without time, who drank the living's blood, bearing a sorrow older than sin itself. And through it all, Seraphil waited. He waited for the curse to reveal its meaning, for the moment to come when he would learn whether he was a mistake or a message. There are moments in history when the sky shifts, not in weather, but in meaning, when stars tremble and a moon changes hue, not by chance, but through divine will. Such nights are remembered not by kings or scholars, but by those who dwell between worlds, who listen to whispers carved in stone and inscribe history with blood. It was on one such night, during the 3rd age of Seraphil's exile, that the moon turned crimson, not the soft red of dusk nor the glow of an eclipse, but a deep, pulsing red as if it bled from heaven itself. The world responded. Animals fled their dens. Infants cried out together. Wells turned pitch black in some regions, and statues wept tears of salt in others. Few understood the true meaning of this omen. Among them was a dying oracle on the southern cliffs of Samaria, a blind woman whose voice once inspired repentance across nations. She had been silent for 3 decades, but on that crimson moon night, she awoke, screaming, and carved a message into the stone of her temple with her bare fingers. It was no warning. It was a name, Seraphil. With it came a prophecy chilling even the watchers lingering in shadow. When the blood of the first drinks the light of a child unborn, he shall witness not the end of his curse, but its purpose. From his line will come one who shall walk into heaven with blood upon their hands, and be neither judged nor stopped. On that day, the gates will open. The celestial thrones read the message quietly. The prophecy spoke not of destruction, but of re-entry, of a being born from exile who would be allowed passage, not condemnation. This was unthinkable. Among angels, some called for immediate action, others preferred to observe. Seraphil was once more left to silence, watched and feared, yet untouched. Seraphil felt the moon's transformation as keenly as anyone. Standing atop a mountain ridge, cloaked in darkness, he gazed upon the bleeding sky. Though he could not grasp the feeling fully, something inside him stirred, a sensation dormant for centuries. He realized he was no longer alone. Echoes had begun to emerge. Others born not like him, less pure, diluted forms of the curse, transmitted through blood and desperation. Men who fed on blood, women who moved unseen in shadow, children with eyes that shunned sunlight. They were not Seraphil's children by flesh, but they were his legacy. In secret circles, whispers spread of a pale wanderer who could enter temples unharmed, whose blood bubbled only under divine light, who had no sire, no grave, no true name. From these murmurs, a movement grew. Some of these lesser vampires began to revere him, not as a god, but as the origin, the first, the silent flame of Azel's line, the weeping father, a hunger born of mercy. Though Seraphil sought no followers, he felt their pain, their loneliness and their fractured existence in a world that rejected them. Much like himself, he began leaving signs in darkness, symbols carved in stone, visible only in moonlight, with messages that read, "I was like you. You're not forgotten. You were not born evil." Yet as some yearned to walk without violence, others descended into madness. They fed without restraint, killed for pleasure, and blurred the line between Seraphil's sorrow and their sin. Fear followed, and the word vampire, once void of meaning, became a curse. Seraphil withdrew further into shadow. His hope had been to bring balance and guide the lost, but his presence only stirred judgment. Still, the prophecy lingered. He could not deny its truth. Someday, one born of his line would walk into heaven, not to destroy, but to finish a task left undone. Perhaps in that path, Seraphil himself would finally witness the gates open once more. Seraphil's story is one woven from threads of love, sorrow, and an unyielding curse. Born from a fallen angel's compassion and punished by divine law, he embodies a complex existence, neither wholly angelic nor fully human, marked by eternal hunger and exile. Across centuries, he has wandered through time and legend, a solitary figure burdened with a sorrow that transcends mortality. Yet, intertwined with his curse is a prophecy that hints at redemption and restoration. From his bloodline will emerge one who may walk into heaven, not as a condemned outcast, but as a harbinger of a new beginning. Seraphil stands at the threshold of fate, a testament to mercy intertwined with punishment, his legacy shaping the destiny of generations yet to come. If you found Seraphil's haunting journey as gripping as we do, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps keep the tales of forbidden legends alive. Join us as we uncover more stories where myth and destiny intertwine.